الحمد لله استهل بالحمد خير ما نزل إليك خمسا تبدأ.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. نحمده ونصلي ونسلم على رسوله الكريم أما بعد. Today inshallah we discuss the 11 juz of the Quran Sharif, a portion, the last portion of Surah At-Tawbah, and then the entire Surah Yunus. In yesterday's discussion, we had discussed a glimpse of the expedition of Tabuk. It was a difficult journey, and many of the munafiqeen did not have the spiritual courage to go out and join Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And on the other hand, they had no excuse. But when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam had returned from the expedition, they came to Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam and they made the excuses, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam had accepted the excuse, and Nabi alayhi salatu wasallam overlooked it. Thereafter, Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala speaks about وَالسَّابِقُونَ الْأَوَّلُونَ مِنَ الْمُهَاجِرِينَ وَالْأَنصَارِ. The very first, the predecessors from the Muhajirin, those that migrated, and the Ansar, the people of Medina Munawwara, وَالَّذِينَ اتَّبَعُوهُمْ بِإِحْسَانٍ, and those that had followed them in doing good. What is the verdict and what is the decision of Allah Rabbul Izzat with regards to the Sahaba of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Radiyallahu anhum, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was pleased with them. Waradu anhu, and they were pleased with Allah Rabbul Izzat. Whatever the circumstances had been, whether it was hunger, poverty, lack of resources, thirst, whatever it was, Sahaba radiyallahu ta'ala anhum always remain pleased with the decree of Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala and the decision of Allah. وَأَعَدَّ لَهُمْ جَنَّاتٍ تَجْرِي تَحْتَهَا الْأَنْهَارُ خَالِدِينَ فِيهَا أَبَدًا. Allah had prepared for them gardens under which rivers flow, and they will live in it, dwell in it forever. ذَلِكَ الْفَوْزُ الْعَظِيمُ, and that is the great victory. And this is the victory that Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala had called a victory. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about Masjid Dirar. Masjid Dirar was a masjid that was put up as a conspiracy against Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam around the time of the expedition of Tabuk, so that it becomes a center for those that are against the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They invited Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam to come and perform a salah there. But Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was on his way to Tabuk, and hence Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not stand and he did not perform any salah. In contrast to that, Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala speaks about لَمَسْجِدٌ أُسِّسَ عَلَى التَّقْوَى مِنْ أَوَّلِ يَوْمٍ أَحَقُّ أَن تَقُومَ فِيهِ. That there is a masjid, and that refers to Masjid of Quba, which Allah Ta'ala here calls Ussisa ala taqwa, that was founded on taqwa, and taqwa will refer to the piety, the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, has a greater right that you stand in it, O Muhammadur Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Going further, the incident is famous that three sincere Sahaba of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam did not participate in the expedition of Tabuk and the boycott that Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala had commanded against them. As the surah comes to an end, Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala speaks about our Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. لَقَدْ جَاءَكُمْ رَسُولٌ مِّنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ عَزِيزٌ عَلَيْهِ مَا عَنِتُّمْ حَرِيصٌ عَلَيْكُمْ بِالْمُؤْمِنِينَ رَءُوفٌ رَحِيمٌ فَإِنْ تَوَلَّوْا فَقُلْ حَسْبِيَ اللَّهُ حسبي الله لا إله إلا هو عليه توكلت وهو رب العرش العظيم. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks very glowingly about our Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that surely there has come to you a messenger from amongst you. Difficult on him is your suffering. His desire is for your good, and for the believers, or to the believers, he is kind and merciful. So if they turn away, say, O Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Hasbi Allah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is sufficient for us. La ilaha illahu, there is no object of worship but Allah. Alayhi tawakkaltu wa huwa rabbul arshil azim. And I place my full trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who is the Lord, who is the Rabb of the great throne. In Surah Yunus, Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala, again it is a Makki surah, it is a surah that was revealed prior to the hijrah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and in it Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala once again speaks about Iman and the very great signs of Allah Rabbul Izzat. But there is one contrast in the surah that Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala draws, and that contrast is the contrast between two groups of people, one Fir'aun and the army of Fir'aun, and the other the people of Sayyidina Yunus alayhi salatu wassalam. Fir'aun's incident is very, very famous in that we know that at the time when he pursued Sayyidina Musa alayhi salatu wassalam, and when Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala had given Musa alayhi salatu wassalam emancipation, and Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala had freed him, وَجَاوَزْنَا بِبَنِي إِسْرَائِيلَ الْبَحْرَ فَأَتْبَعَهُمْ فِرْعَوْنُ وَجُنُودُهُ بَغْيًا وَعَدْوًا. Allah ta'ala gave Musa alayhi salam salvation. However, Fir'aun had pursued Musa alayhi salam حَتَّى إِذَا أَدْرَكَهُ الْغَرَقِ, until Fir'aun had drowned. At the time when he was drowning, he said, آمَنْتُ أَنَّهُ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا الَّذِي آمَنَتْ بِهِ بَنُو إِسْرَائِيلَ. I believe in that deity regarding whom there is no other deity, the deity of the Bani Israel, the people of Israel. وَأَنَا مِنَ الْمُسْلِمِينَ, and I am from amongst the Muslimin. Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala did not spare him, and Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala had not accepted his iman. On the other hand, the contrast with the people of Sayyidina Yunus alayhi salatu wassalam. Yunus alayhi salatu wassalam for a long while had been inviting his people towards Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala, and in the invitation that he had given, the simple invitation that every Nabi had given, and that was Tawheed and the oneness of Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala. His people had refused to accept the Tawheed and the oneness of Allah, and hence they went on in the evil ways and the arrogance. Eventually, Yunus alayhi salatu wassalam reminded them and warned them of the adhab of Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala. Now in many narrations, Yunus alayhi salatu wassalam had said to them that the adhab of Allah will come within a period of 3 days. And the signs of the adhab of Allah became apparent. When the signs of Allah's adhab had become apparent, Sayyidina Yunus alayhi salatu wassalam had left his people, and the people, seeing the signs, began to make tawbah. In Surah Safat, Allah Ta'ala says there were over 100,000, and when they made tawbah, they did it in a fashion that they left the city. First of all, they went to look for Yunus alayhi salam. Yunus alayhi salam had left the city, and now the people then decided that they wear the clothing that is ragged, that is old and tattered. Then they had come out with the old and the young, and they made a sincere tawbah to Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala, such a tawbah that Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala had accepted and Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala accepted their iman. So Allah Ta'ala says, فَلَوْلَا كَانَتْ قَرْيَةٌ آمَنَتْ فَنَفَعَهَا إِيمَانُهَا إِلَّا قَوْمَ يُونُسَ. Besides the people of Yunus alayhi salatu wassalam, no other civilization, no other community had brought iman in a way that will benefit them. Now the important lesson we learn from this contrast is that Fir'aun had seen the signs of Allah's azab, the signs were there. He delayed right till the end, at the time of Ghargharatul Maut, when the sakarat of maut, the pangs of death, had become apparent. At that time, he wanted to bring iman in Allah. That iman was not accepted. In contrast to him, the people of Sayyidina Yunus alayhi salatu wassalam, on seeing the signs of the azab of Allah, the azab had not yet come down upon them, they realized that the message of Yunus alayhi salatu wassalam is a true message. He had never lied in his life, and the result of that was that they brought iman in Allah, and that iman was accepted by Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. And hence, in this way, a very, very important message that let us not delay in making tawbah and seeking forgiveness from Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. May Allah Ta'ala give us the tawfiq. Wa sallallahu ala nabi al-kareem wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.
بالحمد حين تقرأ بالحمد حين تقرأ